Hi there, here are your cultural empathy takeaways for the week. I just found this website as I was starting to write up my own stuff, and I was like, oh, I just kept reading through this, and I thought, this is really well defined. So I just wanted to include this as the takeaways for this week. That we're talking about cultural empathy, and this maybe takes on a little bit more of a sociological feel, I think, as I mentioned before in my other video. But I really like the way this is presented. So we're talking about cultures, um, as it says a little bit later in this brief definition, an example that we're increasingly becoming more exposed, more familiar, having relationships with people of all different cultures. So it's really important for us to understand and be culturally empathetic. So what is cultural empathy? It's often confused with sympathy, but you already know this, right? So you can take a look at that a little bit more. But we're also, they're talking about that empathy, taking the time to actually feel what others are feeling. We're talking about cultural empathy, and here's a very good sociological definition of culture: the shared customs, beliefs, attitudes, values of a group of people that have been accumulated over a period of time. This can include Hispanic, Chinese, so on, different types of cultures. I would also say, as we move into next week, for week 7, culture can mean, that work environment or that church environment or an environment where, again, there's a shared beliefs, attitudes that has been accumulated over a period of time. So again, as I mentioned in my other video, we're talking about kind of two structures of culture here, and this one can be more about different race, ethnicity, and so forth. So it gives an example. Cultural empathy then is having an appreciation and consideration of differences and similarities of another culture in comparison to one's own. If you have cultural empathy, generally you can be more tolerant of differences. And so it says, this is an example, if you are a culturally empathetic American and you see a Muslim woman here wearing a hijab, you may not just come to a conclusion that that's oppressive or controlled by her religion. A culturally empathetic American may say, well, this might be a fashion choice for her, or even if it is a symbol of religion, this is something that she wears for empowerment rather than a gender injustice issue. Factors that can influence cultural empathy. Again, as mentioned in the beginning, and it mentions here, the value of cultural empathy has become increasingly important in the last few decades due to increases in immigration, globalization, international business. We have opportunities to interact with people more frequently on a personal and professional level. And that cultural empathy makes it smoother, more pleasant interactions, especially for our working and personal relationships. So what makes one person more culturally empathetic than another? Let's look at some factors on that. And again, very sociological here, I like it. Socioeconomic status. Often those in higher, more dominant status are less empathetic to those in a lower status. And I think we can see this quite often. Sometimes with those who have kind of a disdain for the poor. Often they're people who are in more powerful socioeconomic positions. Exposure. I think this is a really important point. The more exposure one has to different cultures, the higher the cultural empathy. So an American college student who studied abroad in Spain may have more cultural empathy towards Spanish customs and values rather than not having this experience. It's not only, I like this, it's not only accomplished through travel. It can just be widening our knowledge of different cultures. We can watch different documentaries or articles, ask people of different cultural backgrounds. We can read stories that are taking place in different places. Also understanding one's own culture. The greater comprehension you have of your own culture, including stereotypes and generalizations, the more you can appreciate and understand other cultures. So if you think, wow, my culture has this and that, and we have these certain beliefs and values, you can think of the other culture having similar, they may be different, but still thinking about those values and beliefs that other cultures have and how important those are to those people of their culture. Personnel gain, and I think this is just a really good final example, and I can't unlock this lesson because I'm not a study.com member, but I think we get a really good introduction and definition here to cultural empathy. But for individuals who interact with those of other cultural backgrounds as part of their profession, it's really, really important to be empathetic toward people who are culturally different. And I like this example. A social worker if they maintain bias and cultural superiority when counseling those from other cultural backgrounds, they're going to have a difficult time establishing a rapport and achieving any kind of therapeutic success with their clients because of just those barriers of not trying to understand the other, not trying to put yourself in those shoes, but feeling that level of superiority that your culture is better than another. So those are some takeaways for cultural empathy. I thought this was really well defined and provided some good examples. So I encourage you to read through it a little bit more if you'd like, and explore some other areas where you can expand your cultural understanding of others. So thanks for listening.